All right, hello. I'm going to try to make this video as fast as humanly possible. We all have little amounts of time. We all have things to do. If you're watching this, you either one, heard me talk about covered calls, I told you about them, and you're like, no, you're wrong. There's some risk you're not telling me about, and that's crazy. That sounds too good to be true. And you're wrong. I'm not wrong. You're wrong. Second of all, if you're watching this, I told you about covered calls, and you're like, oh, I don't know what that is, but that sounds interesting. So I'm going to explain it right now for both parties. Okay. And I also think you can outperform US indices with this strategy, with covered calls. You can also use cash secured puts, but you'll mainly be using covered calls. And using these together is called the wheel strategy. So I'm not going to explain every single little detail about how options work. So some of it you're just going to have to look up. Maybe I'll make other videos. But these are the basics. Calls and puts. A call, you have the right but not the obligation to buy a stock. A put, you have the right but not the obligation to sell or short a stock. We're going to be sellers, so we're not going to be able to choose whether or not contracts will get exercised. Instead, we're going to be told by the broker, hey, your contract got exercised. But that doesn't matter. Basically, what that means for us on a position of covered calls is basically you have secured profit. That's what it means for us, as long as you didn't short below your cost basis. But we'll get to that. That's like idiotic. Second, puts, you're going to be forced to buy, forced to purchase the stock if it goes down. So I'll explain how all this works in a second. It makes more sense when you talk about it in a practical manner, but let's move on. For every contract, whether you buy, sell, whether you're long or short, doesn't matter. It's worth 100 shares. It's equivalent to 100 shares. So just remember that. That's why we're buying 100 shares before we short a contract, because it's covered. We don't want to get short squeezed, right? So covered calls versus cash secured puts. How it works? Well, for every 100 shares you own, you're allowed to short a call for covered calls. This is the standard for the lowest level of margin on brokers. Yes, if you have 300 grand sitting in your account, you can short as many calls as you want without owning the shares. But because we are everyday people, that doesn't work for us. So we need to own 100 shares. And we're also taking out the risk by owning 100 shares. And then second, how it also works is the premium is credited to your account immediately. So when you do this, you get the money immediately. You can go turn around and take it out of your account if you want and go spend it on bubblegum or whatever. But you get the point. Now the risks, for all of you who said there are some crazy risks to this that I'm not telling you about, the only risk is the same exact risk as if you were going to purchase the stock outright. If the stock goes down, your shares lose value. If you're doing a covered call and the stock goes down, that only helps your short position on the call. Now, there are shortcomings to this position, not risks, shortcomings. For what I'm doing, I mean, you could do it a different way if you want, but short-term capital gains are taxed as income. So if you're going to do short-term, like weekly or monthly, yeah, taxes as income. But what are you going to do? If you made 500 grand a year at a job, I'm not saying you can make 500 grand a year with this, but you get this taxed the same way. So get over it, right? Find a way around it. 2, if the stock goes up, your profit's capped. Now this also sucks, but there's a way around it. Like there's 100% a way around it. I can show you. And then 3, implied volatility. If you don't know what this is, go search it up. Implied volatility is not consistent. You're not going to have 50% IV every single week. Things change, the market changes, right? Prices change. So here's a scenario. Let's get practical, right? This is HIMS. Obviously, it's not at $43.68 anymore. This is post Super Bowl, post screenshot. Stock has gone crazy. But if you purchase 100 shares of HIMS at $43.68, that's going to cost you $4,368. And now for the covered call, you have 100 shares and you want to short a call. You're going to short this right here. This is an options chain, by the way. You're going to short this $45 call for $184, and it's going to expire. This is like an 8-day expiration, so about a week. Okay. So here's, just go over the position again. Here's your position in case you forgot or you're not following along. This is like simplified. Here's how the cash flow works. How do you actually get this money, right? Like, come on, Chesco, you're lying. No, I'm not. If you start off with $4,400, you buy the stock. Here's what you net, right? Same thing as purchasing a stock outright. You short the call, short the $45 call. That's $184 in your pocket. And then boom, your final cash balance is $216. And you were credited $184. You can keep it. You can go buy another stock with it. Do whatever you want. Now, one of three things will happen within those next 8 days. One, the stock trades above the strike price, the $45. Two, it goes sideways and it finishes at $45. Or three, it goes below $45. Scenario one, stock goes crazy, right? Everyone wants HIMS. Everybody wants it. It's the hottest thing on the market. So you're going to go, okay, well, I have two options. I can either, one, wait for assignment, but I'm going to have to leave $500 on the table. But I get an automatic 132 because when you're forced to sell your shares at the contract price, then you get to keep the difference between your cost basis on your stock and the strike price of your contract. So that's $132. But again, you're leaving $500 on the table. Kind of sucks. Now, the other option is you don't get this guaranteed profit of $132 and you don't keep the $184 and instead you cover that and then short another contract even further out in expiration that will be more than how much it costs to buy back your $45 contract. That is a really simplified version of rolling. I'm not going to explain that right now because that might take like a couple minutes. We don't have time for that. You get the point. You just either roll or you receive assignment. You choose. Now, 2 and 3, scenario 2 and 3 are basically the same outcome. So the stock trades sideways. It has to finish at $45 for the stock to not, or sorry, for the call to not have risk of being exercised. Because why would you buy a call when you can just buy at the market price? That doesn't make sense. That's the whole point why it has to be at the money and not in the money. Anyways, if you don't know what that is, search it up. You don't want intrinsic value, search it up if you don't know what that means. And then if the stock trades below, then you're good. Like you're just fine. You're good. And after that, you can just rinse and repeat. Hold the stock, short another call, short another call, short another call. Stock jumps up. Okay, roll. Don't collect the premium for that week. Collect the next week. Right? It's that easy. It really is that easy. And when I show you the premiums that are offered on stocks, you're not going to believe me, but I'm going to show you directly from the options chain. Okay, so how it works. Cash secured puts. This is the opposite of covered calls. So you're going to short a put, meaning you think the stock's going to go up or sideways, but not down. You're going to lose access to the cash equivalent of the strike times 100, which means if we're going to short this $43 put, we're going to lose access to $4,300. 43 times 100 is 4,300. But you're going to collect the premium at the same time. Here are the cash flows for it. If you have $4,400 in your account, and instead of doing what we did before, you're going to short a $43 put. And then this happens at the same time. You're going to lose access to $4,300. You're going to collect credit for $203. Your final cash balance is going to be $303. You get the point. Here are the same three scenarios. It's the same thing, just opposite. If it goes down below your strike, you're going to be forced to buy the stock. And you don't have any guaranteed profit in this one, though. Sorry. It's just you have to buy the stock at a higher price than it currently is, which means you could be left bag holding, but that was your decision when you shorted the put. And then the other two options, again, stock or the contract finishes at the money because the stock's only at 43, not a cent below. And the stock can also go above and you're good. You're chilling. You collect the premium. Do it again and again and again. All right, so things to keep in mind. The strategy can be expensive. Don't be naive. This is not just free money. You need money to make money. You're gonna have to put up like a fair amount if you really want to do this. You can't just be like, oh, I'll put in $100 and see what happens. No, absolutely not. 2, riskier stocks offer higher premiums. So if you want to take that risk of, oh, let me collect $500 this week, that's great and all, but there's a reason why these options are why they're so expensive. The market is really efficient, so the move is probably priced in already. The market just knows. It's all priced in. And then lastly, this is just personal advice. I'm totally not a financial advisor, but I would say avoid using this strategy on stocks you aren't comfortable holding long term, because you don't want to be left holding the bag and you're down 67% and you just don't come back. Like, that's not worth it. But now I want to show you the option premiums from my broker, because people are not going to believe me and they're going to say I'm faking it, it's a screenshot, whatever. I will show you directly from the broker how you can make 1% a week. I can't make this up. Okay, this is Thinkorswim from Charles Schwab. And here's an options chain. You know, we're not going to use Oklo, they're pretty volatile. But let's use NVIDIA. We all know NVIDIA, the AI darling. So, if you were going to buy 100 shares of NVIDIA, it would cost you $13,500, okay? And Delta, if you don't know what the Greeks are in options, go look them up. Delta, I'll just explain Delta really quickly. It has 2 meanings. It's the percentage that this contract right here, this $142 contract, will expire in the money. And it also means that every time the stock goes up $1, this is added to the premium. So $23 will be added to here to be $128. But we're going to focus on the first meaning, which is the percentage that expires in the money. So again, it would cost you $13,500, right? Well, 1% of that is $135, or basically just the market price, okay? For a 30% chance of you getting assigned, you could make over 1%. You can collect over 1%. Might be a little bit over 1%, but it's still over 1%. And that's significant because 52% times, 1% times 52 is 52%. But you see what I'm saying? And even if you have to roll a couple weeks and you miss some weeks, even 30% doing nothing, pretty good. And if the stock goes up, then you're rewarded even more, and the stock gets more expensive, so the premiums are higher. So the initial amount is actually getting a higher return on investment per week. I mean, this is just crazy. And if you said, okay, well, Chesco, that's NVIDIA. Like, come on, let's keep it fair. I'll say, okay, how about Palantir? And you go, okay, well, that's also kind of a crazy stock. I'm gonna go, yeah, but look at these premiums. Look at 34% making over 1%. Like a 34% chance of you getting assigned, still making over 1%. Even 27%. That's pretty good. And I'll say, okay, let me do a stock you've never heard of. You've probably never heard of this, unless you and I think the exact same way. This is a uranium/nuclear stock, however you want to categorize it. But the point is, you can make 1% on this. And I'm sure you've never heard of Vistra. There's no hype that's currently running around it like NVIDIA or Palantir. But there will be. 22%. I mean, if you get it on the ask, if you can sell on the ask, yeah, make over 1%. But 27%, like, this is a common thing. This is a real thing. I can't make this up. You can make 1% using covered calls and beat the NASDAQ or the S&P. That wasn't that good. But yeah, this is me explaining covered calls and showing you the numbers in front of your face that I'm not lying. Like, I can't make this up. I just can't. So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope you make some nice smackaroonies with the strategy.